Han purple, the color the terracotta army took to the grave, was a synthetic pigment invented 800 years before the West even dreamed of chemistry, and it literally breaks apart into invisible light at freezing temperatures. Tonight we walk east of Xi'an, across a dry plain in Shanxi, as the last gold leaves the fields. Beneath our feet lies an army, not of men, but of clay. Thousands of soldiers, each with a different face, standing in silent ranks in the dark. When they were made, more than 2,000 years ago, they did not look as they do now. They were painted. Crimson robes, green sleeves, black hair, and on some of them, a purple found nowhere in nature. That purple is the reason we are here. It carries a secret the men who mixed it could not have known. A secret that would not surrender until physicists, 23 centuries later, cooled a fleck of it toward absolute zero. We will get there slowly. First, the color, where it came from, and what it truly is. Keep your pace slow here. There is no hurry in this ground. Let the plain settle around you before we go any further. Step back with me into a Qin workshop at twilight. The air is thick with the smell of ground stone and charcoal smoke. Here, someone is making the impossible. Han purple does not exist in the earth. You cannot dig it up. It must be built from raw minerals in a crucible. The recipe calls for a copper mineral, quartz sand, and a barium compound, all crushed to powder and bound with lead. Then heat. Fierce, sustained heat, close to 1,000 degrees, held steady for hours. Get the temperature wrong, and you get grey ash. Get it right, and something blooms in the fire, a deep violet crystal, barium copper silicate, that no one had ever seen before. Chemists today write it as one tidy formula, but the people who first made it had no chemistry, no periodic table, no idea what an atom even was. They had fire, patience, and a guess that paid off. Picture the crucible glowing, the powder darkening, then the first grains of violet catching the firelight like tiny embers of a color the world did not yet have a name for. Consider what that guess required. To make Han purple, you must add barium. And barium raises the melting point, which means you need even more heat, not less. So the makers added lead. The lead is a flux. It lowers the melting temperature and lets the crystals form and hold their shape. This is genuinely sophisticated. It is the logic of a glassmaker, not a painter. And that is the first real clue to where this color was born. Because in the same centuries, in the same region, Chinese artisans were making a strange, cloudy barium glass, unlike anything in the West. The chemistry overlaps almost perfectly. The same barium, the same lead, the same careful fire. Scholars who study these pigments notice this and lean toward a single idea, that the purple was not invented by artists at all. It came out of a furnace meant for something else entirely. Nothing about this happened by accident. Somebody, long ago, learned exactly how much heat to give and exactly when to hold it. Here the story turns, and we must tread carefully, because this is where fact softens into theory. Many scholars argue that Han purple was born in the workshops of Taoist alchemists. These were people chasing immortality, grinding minerals, searching for elixirs that could cheat death. Glassmaking and pigment making sat close to that work. The evidence suggesting this link is real. The shared barium, the shared lead, the shared temperatures, and the appearance of these colors alongside early Chinese glass. But it remains a careful argument, not a settled fact. No ancient recipe survives. No one wrote the method down. What we can say is this. Somewhere between the 8th and the 3rd centuries before our era, someone in China learned to synthesize a purple that the natural world had never offered. And whether they were painters, glassmakers, or alchemists reaching for eternal life, they did it 800 years before Europe would stumble toward a chemistry of its own. So we hold two truths at once. We know the color existed. We are still, gently, arguing about the hands that first made it. Lift up now, above the kilns, As the first pale light touches the hills, think of the scale of what this color served. When the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, ordered his tomb, he did not want a monument. He wanted a world, an entire underground empire staffed by an army that could guard him forever. Ancient accounts describe a labor force of hundreds of thousands working over decades, and every warrior was to be painted, brought to life in color, dressed in the pigments of the living. Han purple was among them, laid across trousers and armor ties, a color so costly and so difficult to make that its very presence signals imperial power. To command this purple was to command the furnaces that made it. Down there, in the dark trenches, the army waited, painted and gleaming, for an emperor who believed death was only another border to cross. The purple sat on the lowest ranks and the finest details alike, a quiet flag of an empire that could bend fire to its will. Down in those trenches, thousands of painted soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder in a silence that would last for millennia. And then the color died twice. The first death came with the air. When the emperor's tomb was sealed around 210 before our era, the warriors stood in full color, but collapse and fire, and above all time, took their toll. When farmers digging a well in 1974 broke into the pits, they found gray, rank upon rank of gray clay soldiers. The surviving paint, exposed to dry air after 2,000 years underground, curls and flakes within minutes of excavation. Whole faces of color have been lost in the time it takes to lift a figure free. So most of what you picture, that famous stone gray army, is a ghost of the real thing. The true army was a riot of color, and somewhere in that lost brilliance was a purple that would, much later, stop modern physicists in their tracks. Because Han purple was hiding a second secret, one that has nothing to do with art. And so, twice buried, the color went on waiting, patient as the clay that held it. Look closely at what survives. On sheltered fragments, in the folds where paint clung on, the purple endures. And under the right light, it does something uncanny. When archaeologists shine certain wavelengths on Han purple, it answers. It glows, emitting light in the near-infrared, a band our eyes cannot see at all. This is how conservators now hunt for traces too faint to notice. They photograph the invisible glow and let the pigment reveal itself, a color that speaks in a light beyond sight. For a long time, this seemed just a curious quirk, a small trick of old paint. But when physicists finally turned their instruments on it, the quirk cracked open into something far stranger. They took a crystal of Han purple and they began to make it cold. Not winter cold, cold approaching the very bottom of the temperature scale where matter forgets how to behave. A crystal that answers cold with something no painter could have intended. Move with me into a modern laboratory, all quiet hums and blue light. Here, teams from Stanford, from Los Alamos, and from the University of Tokyo studied that ancient crystal. They chilled it to within a few degrees of absolute zero, then bathed it in a magnetic field of staggering strength, and the pigment did something no one expected. Under those conditions, its magnetic waves stopped moving in 3 dimensions. They collapsed into 2. The material, a solid 3-dimensional object you could hold in your palm, began to behave as if one of its dimensions had simply vanished. One physicist, Ian Fisher, described it as collective behavior in a bulk material occurring in just 2 dimensions, observed for the first time. Read that slowly. A pigment mixed by hand before the fall of the Roman Republic became a doorway into physics that no ancient maker could have imagined, and that we are still working to understand. A color meant for the eyes of the dead became a tool for reading the structure of matter itself. What is actually happening down there, at the edge of cold? Inside Han purple, the atoms are stacked in layers. The magnetism lives in the copper, and normally those magnetic units pair up and cancel each other out. But cool the crystal far enough, press it with a strong enough field, and the pairs break apart. The material reaches what physicists call a quantum critical point, a knife edge where the ordinary rules give way. At that edge, the three-dimensional crystal loses a dimension and its magnetic life flattens into sheets. This is the freezing, dimension-shedding behavior the old hook was pointing to. It is not that the purple falls apart. It is that, at the coldest extreme, it reveals a hidden shape it was carrying all along. The makers who ground this powder saw only a beautiful color. They could never have known they had built, by hand, a crystal that plays games with the dimensions of space. Beauty on the outside. On the inside, a doorway the makers never knew they had opened. Now let the story begin its long evening. Han purple had its centuries. It colored the tombs and temples and treasures of the Qin and the Han. Then, as the Han dynasty crumbled in the 3rd century of our era, the color went quiet. The workshops closed, the trade routes shifted. The alchemists and glassmakers who held the method scattered or died, and the recipe went with them. No manual preserved it, no apprentice carried it forward. Within a few generations, no one in China could make Han purple anymore. The knowledge that had taken centuries to build was simply forgotten, as if a door had swung shut on a lit room. For roughly 1700 years, the color existed only where it had already been laid down, sleeping on old walls and buried soldiers, waiting in the dark for someone to look again and wonder how it was ever made. And still, in the dark, the color kept its promise, holding fast where the light could not reach. Walk through one of those emptied workshops with me in the blue of a late moon. The crucibles are cold, the furnaces have gone to ruin. Everything that made the color has been carried off by time, everything except the color itself. And that is the quiet miracle of Han purple. The people vanished, the method vanished, the empire that prized it vanished. But barium copper silicate, once formed, is patient almost beyond meaning. Locked in its crystal, it held its violet, held its near-infrared glow, held its strange two-dimensional secret, all of it intact, for as long as the clay could keep it. We did not rediscover Han purple by finding a recipe. We rediscovered it by finding the pigment and asking it questions. The soldiers, in the end, were the only ones who remembered. They took the color into the ground, and they kept it faithfully until we came back. Even now, that patience feels almost like loyalty, a color keeping faith with the world that forgot it. So here is the thing worth carrying home. Han purple is the color the terracotta army took to the grave, and the grave kept it better than any book. A pigment made by hands that had no word for atom turned out to hold a state of matter our sharpest instruments are still mapping today. Ancient makers built the future without knowing it. They reached for beauty, and they buried physics by accident. Every fleck of that purple is a message written in a language its authors could not read, waiting patiently for readers who could. We tend to think knowledge only moves forward, that the old world was simply a younger version of ours. But a buried army has quietly proven that the deepest secrets can wait in plain sight, inside a color, for 23 centuries. The past is not always behind us. Sometimes it is underground, holding a light we are only now learning to see. 23 centuries is a long time to keep a secret. The purple kept it without complaint. Tonight the plain outside Xi'an is dark again. The soldiers stand where they have always stood. Most of them still grey, a few still holding their impossible purple in the folds of the clay. Under an ordinary light, you would walk right past it, shine the right light, cool it toward the edge of nothing, and the same old color answers back across the centuries. The people who made it are dust. The color is not. It is still down there, still violet, still glowing in a light we cannot see, still keeping the secret it never knew it carried. Rest now. The army keeps its watch, and the purple keeps its light. Let that be enough for tonight.